Can AI write good copy? That is the $1 million, actually probably $1 billion question. I'm trying to scale a copywriting agency, and if I could have AI do most of the work instead of like having to hire writers as I go along, this would change my like whole life. I've never heard somebody actually like sort this out without trying to like sell me something, so I'm just gonna figure it out myself. And that's what I did. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk you guys through this stupid conversation that I had with Mr. Claude himself, okay? So I've heard on the web that Claude is like best for writing, so I'm just gonna start with Claude. Here's what I asked him. I said, hey, Mr. Claude, sir, I don't think you'll ever be as good as me. Am I right? Right? The GOAT, you know? How could AI be as good as a real flesh and bones human? And he said, you're sort of right, but I can make your life way easier if you weren't an idiot. And I was like, all right, that checks out. And it said, basically, give me whatever context you would need for that specific piece of copy, give me good specific examples, and then have me do 70% and you finalize it. And I'm kind of like, all right, this makes sense. Like if it could write me most of the email and all I have to do is like do the last 20%, that still saves me a lot of time. I still have to do work, but I mean, bro, it's life. Like you're going to have to do work, okay? It's not a push button. Sorry, everybody who follows Iman. AI is not that easy. You're going to have to do some work. And I know that, but can it actually do it is the question. So he says, okay. Oh, this is what I said. Okay, Mr. Claude, sir, what exact context would you need to write one of these 70% done emails? And he said, basically, I'll need so much freaking context that you might as well write the dang thing yourself, loser. Yeah, this is what it spit out, was like, I need all of this. And at that point, for an email, it's like, bro, I feel like I should just write it. But it did say that most people give AI way too much context. And so they dump this 10-page brand guide when all they really need is 5 sentences that capture the essence of what AI needs to write that specific email. So I was like, all right, Mr. Claude, sir, I spent an entire year writing a first principles 10-hour-long course on copywriting. Does that help you at all? And honestly, I just asked it this because I was like dying for verification that I didn't waste a year of my life and like basically asking the robot to say I'm cool, which is sad, but you know, frick it. Here we are. So anyways, and you know, Mr. Claude was kind of nice. He's like, you're still a loser, but if you give me just the principles that apply to the specific piece of copy you're writing, maybe that'd be dope. So if I'm going to write like a story piece and you give me the principles around storytelling, that could be useful. So I'm like, all right, well, this wasn't a waste of time, which is pretty cool as far as AI. All right, so then I want to give you guys a quick summary where we're at with the combo so far because it's about to get juicy. So basically, in order for AI to help me with this system, I need to give it specific context on what type of email it's going to be writing. I can't just say like, yo, write me an email. I have to give it context of what the goal is, what the type is, give it some frameworks for that section, but be careful to not go so deep on the framework, but instead give it like, hey, this is the point of this section. Keep it low key, I guess. Number 2, give it specific conditions, like basically the pain points, etc. of that niche, just for that type of email. So don't give it like 75 pain points. Give it just the 3 that matter for that email. Tell it which ones are most important. That's how to get better results. And then give it principles from my copywriting course, but only the ones that are needed for that email. So as you can already tell, man, this is starting to become a lot more work than it's advertised to be with AI, but it seems pretty possible. So I was like, all right, knowing this, Mr. All-Knowing AI idiot, sir, how could I frick this up? Like, what are the roadblocks for me making this work? And he pretty much was like, get wrecked. It's like all of these things, which is honestly a lot of work, even just reading it off. You guys can pause it if you want to see. Basically, it's like I could frick up a lot of stuff, even if you got this right. So not very encouraging, but I was like, you know what? Frick it, Claude. Let's frick around and find out. Let's find out. So here's an email I just wrote from one of my clients. What context would you need to pull something like this off? 70% of the way there, of course, because you ain't never freaking with Top G, a real human, bro. Like literally flesh and blood and creativity flowing. So I gave it that, and it was like, I'm going to need all of this. So essentially, you're going to have to like write the email. So it would need context longer than the email itself. This is the email I gave it. Like I gave it this email, which if you want to pause it, I'll kind of like scroll through it. So there's first page, there's second page, there's third page. It's a solid email. It did really well. And it's like I would need all of this, which is honestly longer. But I thought, okay, which of those elements of context would be consistent for every email for that client? Because that would change things. Like if most of this stayed the same and only a few things changed per email, that would then make this a lot higher leverage and more worth it. And it basically gave me some stuff about that, but I don't know. It seemed kind of a lot of work as well, so you can read that if you want. But let me give you my takeaways. So from the first session here, AI needs to specifically know what good copy looks like for each type. Focus less on the perfect prompt, instead focus on perfect context. Yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of self-explanatory. All right, this is boring. Let me get into like what I actually did finally. Okay, so this morning, I was like, wake the frick up, Claude. It's time to get a bag. Let's get to it. And I told it this. I said, I want you to assume that you're a legendary copywriter who specializes in writing emails for info product coaching consulting. So basically, I told it who it's supposed to be. This gives it a little bit more context when it goes to look for stuff. I told it who it's inspired by. Then I said, all right, here's our mission. We're going to write an email for my client, Nick, who helps music artists grow a loyal fan base through marketing and social media. Our goal is to get an email that's 70% done, and then I'll make the final changes. It should be easy to read, have a clear, big idea, and most importantly, it's persuasive. Here's the process we'll follow. I'm going to link you a good email that I've written for a different client. I want you to tell me all the context that you would need in order to write a similar email to the example email, but it's for Nick's audience. So essentially, I'm taking one of my old emails and saying, what would you need to make this style of email, but for Nick? After you write the email, I want you to tell me which parts of the email you feel like could be improved with more specific context. So basically asking it to kind of like check its work and ask for more help if it needs it. I'll give you extra context and I'll give you my own recommendations on how you can improve. Huge. I don't know if this is like I don't know if I like came up with this or if I'm like freaking G for finding this out, but I've been telling AI to, if you have questions, ask me first before you get started. And so AI was like, all right, little idiot, let's see what happens. But it asked me first, do I want option A or option B? So this went ahead and saved me probably 15 minutes. And I said, I want you to do option A, which is write a completely different topic, but use the same kind of structure and style as the original one. So not just like changing, not just like adapting the idea for a different audience, but like adapting the kind of layout framework. All right. So I said, here you go. Here's some legendary copy from KJ's brain, Zero Robot. So I gave it this email just about infinite copy ideas. It's an old email I sent to my list. It's just straight value. So it's in email value. It doesn't link to anything. It's just like, here's actionable steps. It's going to be valuable for you. Cool. So that's the email. You can pause it if you really care enough. Legendary copy, right? Legendary. So then it said, here's the context. It basically was like, do a dance for me because like, holy crap, look at how much stuff I'd have to fill out. Basically, if I answer all these questions, AI is telling me it could write a decent email, which is a lot. But I was like, you know what? For the sake of my mental health in this video, let's try it. Let's try it. And so here are my answers to each thing. So I gave an answer for the core problem and hook. I just wrote this out. I gave it an answer for like the insight. Then I gave it kind of like a framework that it could use for valuable advice. Then I honestly started to get really just bored of it, and I started just giving like okay advice. It wasn't really that good. I just wrote one sentence. But that's what I did. And so I fed that back to Claude and was like, all right, do something crazy for me. It said, give me a sec. And holy garbage. This email couldn't have sucked any worse, bro. Look at this. You don't need better content ideas. I worked with a lot of artists, some gifted, some making a ton of bread. Ideas are the lifeblood of online business. Without dope ideas, your videos will flop, your emails. Like, it literally just copied my email. And it changed the subject line and one word. And then it's literally like my entire email, but worse. And then at the end, it just randomly puts in the big idea from the other email. It doesn't format it correctly. And I mean, it sucked. Like, this is terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I was crashing out this morning. I was like, this is stupid. I should just go back to writing emails. But I took a second and I told it pretty much like, you freaking suck. And it was kind of like, yeah, I do suck. I mean, it realized it was pretty bad. But here's what I said. I said, let's try that again, but don't structure it so closely to my original email. Base your email more off the context I gave you. It seems like you just copied the original email, then randomly went through in step 3. The original email was more for use to figure out what context would help you, not for you to copy it. So let's have you try it again, but focus more on building a cohesive, simple email based more on the context about Nick and his audience. I would give you more context, but I don't think that's our problem since you didn't even get close. So basically, you suck, right? And it's like, yeah, you're right. I do suck. But before I write this, let me clarify one thing. And it asked me like, what's the big idea? And so I kind of was like, do it again, but don't suck so bad. And so I reprompted it by saying, the start of the email should focus on outlining the problem they face, which is, this main problem. Then you should explain the big idea and answer to this problem, which is to steal like an artist. Then explain away the concern of, isn't that just copying? And then show Nick's authority by explaining how he was able to crank out hundreds of pieces of content a month. Then give them a simple, actionable step-by-step advice. Also, you don't have to follow this super strictly. Just use it as a guideline. Don't worry about matching the voice. We can do that later. If you get stuck somewhere, feel like you don't have quite enough clarity or context, then pause. Please let me give you what you need. Okay. Now we're cooking. Look at this email, okay? Look at this email. This is not bad. Steal content like you steal beats. You need to post. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, email. It's not optional anymore if you want to build a real fan base. But here's the problem. You're pouring all your creative energy into your music. Late nights in the studio, perfecting that hook, dialing in the mix. By the time you sit down and create content, you're fried. You stare at a blank caption, nothing. You open the camera, nothing feels right. So you either post something generic that gets no engagement or you don't post at all. Meanwhile, other artists should consistently show up with content that hits, building loyal fans. What's the difference? It's not they're more creative than you. It's they figured out how to steal like an artist. Let me explain. So, all right, this is not like, bro, this is so much better compared to the original one. Like, this is honestly in a whole different league. I mean, this is not bad. I know people who would rip this just as it is. This is better than 90% of y'all's freaking copy. I can tell you, I've reviewed over 1,000 hours of copy reviews in my life. This is better than most of y'all. Here's an example. Let's get to the actionable steps. Here's how to do it. Build your inspiration library. Use the algorithm to your advantage. Steal the essence, make it yours. Then you've got 2 options. Keep trying to come up with 100% original ideas every day. Use the system and save creativity. If you want my team and I to build you a custom content strategy that turns your followers into fans, book a call here. Otherwise, go build that inspiration library and start stealing. So it's not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would change because if this is going to be for a real client, like it needs to be S tier if I'm going to actually charge people for what I want my work to be better than anybody else in the market. So I would change a lot. Like it's really kind of cliche the way it says this stuff. It gives off a little bit of AI feel to it. Also, there's a couple of nuances that it didn't understand as far as not everybody is making beats. Like most of these people are not just hip hop. Anyways, it's not freaking bad. So takeaways from this experiment, right? First one, if you can't manually write good copy, you are royally fricked. No exceptions. I had this theory to begin with, which is why I've not gone deep in AI. But yeah, it's so true. You can ask AI. It will tell you if you are not good at copywriting, you're going to get nowhere with AI. Number 2, start with an example you want to emulate. So don't start from nothing. Start by having an example that you want a similar email to kind of go after. Number 3, ask AI for the context that it would need. So don't just like give it random context. Ask it what it would need. And then 4, give it specific context just for that email type. So don't overload it. Just give it what it needs. And then it seems to do way better if you give it like a rough framework of the sections of the email and also the goal of each section. It seems to do way better. So the answer, can AI write good copy based on this little experiment? Number 1, not without a great copywriter yelling at it. Seriously, I mean, there's just no way it's going to write. I don't think that AI will ever write better copy than you. Like, I think it'll never surpass your skill level based on what I've learned. Number 2, potentially if you have templates for different email types. This is my next experiment. I'm going to go through my entire database of like hundreds of emails that I have for myself and other writers that I look up to. And I'm going to create like types of email. So example could be value direct, meaning the value is in the email. not clicking a link to something else valuable. And I'll see if I can create a prompt specifically for that type of email. 2, also having a dialed in deck for each client, and then only copy and paste the conditions that I would need for that email type. So if this value indirect email type needs like a false belief they're doing, the result they want, etc., then I would only give it context for what it needs. I'd have this big deck, but I wouldn't just feed it to AI because it'll overwhelm it. I'll just give it what it needs. 4, if I don't lose my freaking mind, bro, because honestly, after all this, I should have just wrote the dang email. I know that that's not scalable, but like that's why I'm trying to figure out AI. But if you're just writing for like 1 or 2 clients, bro, don't use AI. Like just freaking write it. It's honestly faster. And then 5, stay tuned for the next episode of KJ has a mental breakdown and crashes out on his robots on his way to 30K a month. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. Peace.